Stop right there. You don't belong in this elevator. Service entrance is outside.
I am Eleanor Vance, chair of the board. Remove yourself from my path.
Yeah? Nice story. Hands where I can see them. Now.
Do not touch me. You are on camera and you are already wrong.
I said you're detained!
Then congratulations, you just ended your career.
The high-definition security camera mounted in the vaulted ceiling of the Vanguard Medical Group headquarters captured every pixel of the incident. It recorded the sunlight streaming through the 30-foot glass atrium walls, illuminating the polished marble floors. It recorded the exact moment the automatic doors slid open at 9:45 a.m. on a Tuesday. And most importantly, it recorded the face of Officer Kyle Riker, a man who was about to make a decision based on prejudice that would dismantle his entire life in less than an hour. Before we get into the details of this infuriating encounter, I need you to do something for me. Pause for a second and check if you are subscribed. We are exposing stories of injustice every single week, and if you believe that dignity shouldn't come with a color requirement, hit that subscribe button. You do not want to miss how this plays out. Eleanor Vance stepped out of the morning heat and into the cool, climate-controlled air of the lobby. She was 58 years old, a woman of immense grace and steel dressed in a bespoke charcoal suit that cost more than Officer Riker's car. On her wrist sat a vintage Patek Philippe watch, a gift from the board of directors 5 years ago, when she navigated the company through a hostile takeover. Today was arguably more important. As the chair of the board for Vanguard Medical, Eleanor was here to cast the deciding vote on a merger that would reshape healthcare in 3 states. She wasn't just an employee. She was the highest authority in the building. Kyle Riker, stationed at the executive security desk, didn't see a chairwoman. He didn't see the tailored suit or the confident stride of a woman who owned the room. Riker was 34 years old, fit, with a high and tight haircut, and a uniform that was pressed to military standards. He had been with the private security firm for only 3 weeks. He was looking for threats. He was looking for rule breakers. And when he looked up from his monitors and saw a black woman walking toward the restricted executive elevators with a leather briefcase, his bias filled in the blanks that his training should have covered. He didn't check the VIP arrival list on his screen, which had Eleanor Vance's name at the very top in bold red letters. He didn't look for an ID badge, which she was currently retrieving from her purse. He just saw someone who in his mind didn't belong in the C-suite elevator bank. He stood up, moved out from behind the marble desk, and positioned his body directly in her path. His hand hovered near his belt, not on a weapon, but in a stance of physical dominance. "Hold it right there," Riker said, his voice booming across the quiet lobby. Eleanor stopped. She didn't flinch. She didn't look down. She simply paused and looked at the man blocking her way. She had raised 3 children, performed open-heart surgery for 20 years, and run a Fortune 500 company. She was not easily intimidated by a man in a polyester uniform. "Good morning," Eleanor said, her voice calm, possessing the melodic, educated cadence of a woman who had spent decades lecturing at medical conferences. "I believe I'm running a few minutes early, but I'll head straight up." "You're not heading anywhere," Riker said, crossing his arms. "Deliveries and service staff use the loading dock around the back. You can't just walk through the executive lobby." Eleanor blinked a slow, deliberate motion. She adjusted the grip on her briefcase. "I am not service staff. I am Eleanor Vance. I have a 10 o'clock board meeting on the 40th floor. Riker let out a short, derisive scoff. "Right. And I'm the Surgeon General. Look, lady, I don't know who you think you're fooling, but you need to turn around and walk out those doors. We have strict protocols here. No unauthorized personnel." "I am authorized," Eleanor said, reaching into her purse. "If you will allow me a moment, I will show you my credentials." "Keep your hands where I can see them," Riker barked. The sound echoed off the marble walls. 2 receptionists at the front desk, young women in their 20s, looked up in shock. A courier near the door stopped in his tracks. Eleanor froze her hand. "Officer, I am reaching for my identification badge. It is a gold-tier executive pass. It unlocks every door in this building." "I've seen plenty of fake badges." Riker sneered, stepping closer, invading her personal space. You people always have some story. You think because you put on a nice suit you can just waltz into a secure facility. Not on my watch. You're trespassing. Now are you going to leave voluntarily, or do I need to assist you?" Eleanor's expression hardened. She realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was a wall of willful ignorance. "Officer, I am going to ask you one time to check your arrival log. My name is Eleanor Vance. V-A-N-C-E. Check the list." "I don't need to check a list to know you don't belong on the executive floor," Riker said, his voice dripping with condescension. "The executive floor is for board members and senior VPs, not for whatever this is. Soliciting cleaning, I don't care. You're leaving." Eleanor Vance took a deep breath. She knew the law, she knew company policy, and she knew that arguing with a man like this in a lobby was a losing battle, but she had a corporation to run. "I am the chair of the board," she stated, enunciating every syllable clearly. "And you are currently obstructing a federal merger vote. I am going to walk to that elevator now. If you touch me, you will be committing assault." She took a step to the right, attempting to bypass him. This was the moment Riker crossed the line from rude to actionable. He sidestepped, mirroring her movement, and shot his hand out, grabbing her upper arm in a vice-like grip. "I said hold it!" Riker shouted. Eleanor winced slightly at the pressure but didn't pull away violently. She looked down at his hand on her suit sleeve, then up at his eyes. "Remove your hand from my person immediately. You're failing to comply with security directives," Riker said, his adrenaline spiking. He felt powerful. He felt like he was protecting the castle. "You're detained. Put your bag down, now." "You are making a catastrophic mistake," Eleanor said quietly. Her voice was deadly serious. "I want you to think very carefully about your next action. There are cameras everywhere. You have no probable cause." "My cause is you refusing to leave private property," Riker retorted. He twisted her arm behind her back, forcing her to drop her briefcase. The expensive leather hit the marble with a heavy thud. "Call the CEO," Eleanor demanded, her face pressed uncomfortably forward as he marched her toward a side door. "Call Marcus Thorne. Tell him you have Eleanor Vance in custody." "Mr. Thorne doesn't have time for trespassers," Riker laughed. "You can tell your story to the police when they get here. Until then, you're going in the holding room." The receptionists were whispering frantically into their phones now, but they were too terrified of Riker's aggression to intervene physically. They watched as the chair of the board, the woman who signed their paychecks, was frog-marched across the lobby like a common criminal. Riker shoved open a heavy gray door marked "Security, Authorized Personnel Only," and pushed Eleanor inside. It was a small windowless room used for detaining shoplifters or unruly visitors. It smelled of stale coffee and floor wax. There was a metal table and 2 chairs bolted to the floor. "Sit," Riker commanded. Eleanor straightened her jacket. She smoothed her hair. She did not sit. She stood tall, radiating an authority that Riker was too blind to recognize. "I need my phone," she said. "I need to contact the boardroom." "Phone is evidence," Riker said, snatching her smartphone from her open purse on the table. "You don't get to call your accomplices." "Accomplices?" Eleanor asked, almost incredulous. "I am a grandmother. I am a retired cardiothoracic surgeon. Do you hear yourself?" "I hear a suspect who won't shut up," Riker muttered. He sat down at the small desk in the corner and pulled out an incident report form. Name, Eleanor Vance. Date of birth, August 14th, 1966. Riker paused, doing the math. "You look good for 58. Botched surgery pay well." Eleanor didn't dignify that with a response. She stared at the camera in the corner of the room. She knew the feed went to the main security hub, but Riker was currently the only one manning the front desk post. The rover guard was likely on patrol. She was trapped. "I am invoking my right to remain silent until I speak to legal counsel," Eleanor said. "And I am informing you that you are currently unlawfully detaining a corporate officer of this company." Yeah, save it for the judge," Riker mumbled, writing resisting and belligerent on the form. He felt a smug satisfaction. He had secured the perimeter. He had neutralized a threat. He was doing a good job. Meanwhile, 40 floors above, the atmosphere was shifting from anticipation to anxiety. The boardroom was a masterpiece of mahogany and glass offering a panoramic view of the city skyline. 12 people sat around the massive oval table. Billions of dollars were on the line. But the chair at the head of the table was empty. Marcus Thorne, the CEO of Vanguard Medical, checked his watch for the 5th time. He was a man in his 60s with silver hair and a demeanor of frantic energy. He paced the length of the room. "She's never late," Marcus said. "Eleanor is never late. If she says 9:45, she's here at 9:44. "Maybe traffic," a junior VP suggested. "She has a driver," Marcus snapped. "I called the service. They dropped her off at the front entrance 15 minutes ago. She's in the building." A cold feeling settled in Marcus's stomach. Vanguard Medical dealt with sensitive pharmaceuticals. Corporate espionage was a real threat. Had something happened to her in the elevator? A medical emergency. "I'm going down there," Marcus announced. "Nobody move. Keep the Zoom link with the Tokyo partners open. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Marcus rushed to the private executive elevator. He swiped his badge, and the doors whisked him down 40 floors in seconds. When the doors opened to the lobby, he stepped out, expecting to see Eleanor walking toward him, perhaps on a call. Instead, he saw the lobby eerily quiet. The receptionists had their heads down, typing furiously. The security desk was empty. Marcus walked over to the reception desk. "Where is Miss Vance? Did she come through?" The receptionist, a young woman named Sarah, looked up with wide, terrified eyes. She pointed a shaking finger toward the gray security door. The new guard, Officer Riker, he took her." "He took her where?" Marcus demanded. "In there, sir. The holding room. He said she was trespassing." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. "He did what?" At that moment, the gray door opened. Kyle Riker stepped out, adjusting his belt, looking proud of himself. He saw the CEO standing there and immediately snapped to attention. He recognized Marcus Thorne from the orientation video. "Mr. Thorne," Riker said, beaming. "Good morning, sir. Everything is secure." Marcus stared at him, his hands balling into fists. "Where is the woman who walked in here 15 minutes ago?" Riker nodded confidently. "The intruder, I handled it, sir. Caught her trying to sneak toward your elevators. She claimed she was on the board. Can you believe the nerve she's secured in the holding room? I'm just writing up the transfer for the police." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush a tank. "You arrested the board chair." Marcus whispered, his voice trembling with a mix of rage and disbelief. Riker's smile faltered. "Sir, no. This was a suspect. Black female, late 50s, refusing to identify properly." Marcus didn't wait. He shoved past Riker, hitting the man's shoulder hard, and threw open the door to the holding room. Eleanor Vance was standing exactly where Riker had left her. Her hands were clasped in front of her. Her posture was perfect, but her eyes were burning with a cold, righteous fire. "Eleanor," Marcus gasped. "My God, I am so sorry." Eleanor looked at Marcus, then shifted her gaze to Riker, who was standing in the doorway, his face slowly turning the color of old ash. "Marcus," Eleanor said coolly, "we have a quorum to establish, but first we have a personnel matter to resolve." Riker stepped into the room, his hands shaking. "Mr. Thorne, surely you don't... This woman didn't have a badge." "Shut up!" Marcus roared, spinning around. The vein in his neck was bulging. "Do you have any idea what you've done? This is Eleanor Vance. She owns this building. She signs the contract that pays your company." Riker looked at Eleanor. The pieces slammed together in his mind. The expensive suit, the confidence, the specific knowledge of protocol, the watch. He hadn't seen any of it because he hadn't wanted to. He had seen a stereotype, and now that stereotype was looking back at him with the power to destroy his world. I was just following protocol, Riker stammered, backing up. She refused to go to the service entrance. Why would I go to a service entrance? Eleanor asked, her voice soft but cutting like a scalpel. I am the chairwoman. Do you send Mr. Thorne to the service entrance? No, ma'am, but... But what? Eleanor stepped forward. Say it. Why did you assume I belonged at the loading dock? Articulate your reasoning, Officer Riker. I want to hear it. Riker couldn't speak. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. There was no answer that wasn't an admission of bias. You are relieved of duty, Eleanor said. Give me my phone. Riker fumbled with the phone on the table and handed it to her. His fingers brushed hers and he flinched as if burned. Stay in this room, Eleanor ordered. Do not leave. Do not touch your radio. Do not call your supervisor. Marcus, have the head of legal and the head of HR come down here immediately. And call the captain of the police precinct. I want to file charges for false imprisonment and assault. Yes, Eleanor, Marcus said. Right away. Eleanor picked up her briefcase from where it had been dumped on the floor. She dusted it off. She looked at Riker one last time. He was slumped against the wall, looking like a child who had broken a priceless vase. You wanted to teach me a lesson about authority, Officer Riker, Eleanor said. Consider the lesson learned, but today you are the student. She turned and walked out of the holding room, stepping back into the bright sunlit lobby. The receptionists stared in awe as she walked toward the elevators, Marcus Thorne trailing a step behind her like a bodyguard. She pressed the button. The doors opened. She didn't look back. Downstairs, the dismantling of Kyle Riker began. It didn't take long for the Vanguard legal team to descend. They were sharks in Italian suits, and they smelled blood. Within 20 minutes, the head of global security for Vanguard arrived. He was a former FBI agent, and he was apoplectic. They pulled the footage. They played it on the large monitors in the security hub. Every cringe-inducing moment was replayed in 4K resolution. The block, the service entrance comment, the grab, the arm twist, the sheer unadulterated arrogance. Riker sat in the chair watching himself destroy his own life. He tried to argue. She didn't show the badge fast enough. She was being difficult. She was reaching for it. The head of security pointed out, freezing the video. You stopped her. You escalated. And look at this. You grabbed a woman who posed no physical threat. That's battery. That's a lawsuit. The HR director, a stern woman named Patricia, looked at Riker's file. You've been here 3 weeks. In that time, you've stopped 4 people. Let's look at the demographics. She tapped her tablet. All 4 were people of color. All 4 were staff or guests. You ignored 20 white delivery drivers, but you stopped the blackboard chair. This isn't a mistake, Mr. Riker. This is a pattern. I'm not a racist, Riker protested, his face red. I was just doing my job. You were doing a job based on bias, not protocol, Patricia said. Your contract is terminated immediately. You are banned from all Vanguard properties globally. We are notifying your contracting agency that you are ineligible for rehire, and we are turning this footage over to the police. Riker was stripped of his badge. He was stripped of his radio. He was asked to remove his uniform shirt because it bore the Vanguard logo. He had to walk out of the building in his white undershirt, carrying his belongings in a plastic bag, escorted by 2 former colleagues who looked at him with pure disgust. As he walked through the lobby, the same receptionists he had performed for earlier watched him leave. They didn't look scared anymore. They looked pitying. Upstairs, the merger vote passed. Eleanor Vance conducted the meeting with absolute composure. She didn't mention the incident until the very end. One final item. she said to the board. "We need to review our security contracting protocols. I want a full audit of the diversity training and background checks for all vendor staff. We cannot claim to be a company of healing if we allow toxicity at our front door." The board agreed unanimously. The aftermath was swift but brutal for Riker. The police charged him with misdemeanor battery and false imprisonment. He pled down to a lesser charge to avoid jail time, but he now had a criminal record. His security license was revoked by the state board. Eleanor filed a civil lawsuit against the security contracting firm and Riker individually. The firm, desperate to keep the contract with Vanguard, settled for an undisclosed amount rumored to be in the mid-seven figures. Riker, of course, couldn't pay anything. He ended up moving back in with his parents in a different state. He tried to get jobs in retail, but a simple Google search of his name brought up the news articles. Security guard arrests CEO in lobby. He was radioactive. 6 months later, Eleanor stood in the lobby of Vanguard Medical. It was a Tuesday morning. The sun was streaming in just as it had on that day. There was a new security team. The desk officer was a young Hispanic man named Gabriel. When he saw Eleanor, he stood up and smiled. "Good morning, Ms. Vance," he said. "The elevator is ready for you." "Thank you, Gabriel," she said warmly. She paused for a moment near the spot where Riker had grabbed her arm. The physical bruise had healed in a week. The memory would last forever, but it wasn't a painful memory anymore. It was a reminder. It was a reminder that authority isn't about the uniform you wear or the volume of your voice. It's about character. It's about competence. And it's about the resilience to stand tall when someone tries to make you feel small. Eleanor Vance adjusted her Patek Philippe watch, picked up her briefcase, and walked to the elevator. She had work to do. This story isn't just about a bad security guard. It's about the assumptions we make. It's about looking at someone and deciding their worth, their history, and their right to exist in a space based on nothing but the color of their skin. Eleanor Vance had the power to fight back. She had the lawyers, the money, and the position. But what about the people who don't? What about the young intern, the delivery driver, the patient coming for an appointment? If Riker had stopped someone without Eleanor's power, he might still be working there today. He might still be bullying people. That is the scary reality. We have to ask ourselves, how many Rikers are out there, and how many of us are brave enough to stand up like Eleanor when we see something wrong? What would you have done if you were one of the receptionists watching that happen? Would you have intervened? Drop a comment below and let me know. And if you believe that respect should be the default, not something you have to prove you deserve, hit that like button. Share this story. Let's make sure everyone knows that you can't judge a book or a boss by its cover. Thanks for reading. See you in the next one.